Okay, let's give it another shot. Should be working now. Michael Yan again, live from Chiang Mai, Thailand. We had a problem with the last live stream. I don't know what the problem was. I don't even know if it was me or some other maybe software problem. Let's see. I see Mark Simon just retweeted my tweet in Hong Kong. He's awesome. Mark Simon, by the way, he's Jimmy Lai's right hand man and super, super smart. Every time I meet with Mark or have breakfast with him, he's like, it's like having a national security briefing. You'll see if you look up his name, Mark Simon, you'll see he's been on Steve Bannon's pandemic show, as have I actually. And let me turn off the aircon. Sorry about that. And oh, and the Chinese have blamed him as being CIA and all this stuff. His dad was CIA. That's well known. It's in the news. He doesn't hide it. Whatever. But anyway, he's Jimmy Lai's right hand man, and Jimmy got arrested about a week ago, or 10 days now, right? Because Jimmy Lai owns Apple Daily, right? And he operates out of Taiwan and Hong Kong, and Jimmy Lai is like an enemy of the Chinese Communist Party, which he's just they just are slamming the Chinese Communist Party, and very courageously at that. And so, right, and let me get to these questions. Now, Joe Gunn saying lost the picture. There was something wrong on my end apparently with the picture, and either I hit a button or there was a software glitch. Something like that happened. But I had been talking about masks. I don't know if when I was talking about masks, if they showed up or not. And I was talking about helmets and this sorts of things. I was in particular saying this is the mask that I prefer. It's a 3M 7502. These other little white mask and gray mask, the cloth ones, are really sold out. But you can improvise. There's a lot of ways to improvise. You can even look up old photos from 1918 where people are improvising masks. And what makes a mask that's improvised any worse? A lot of times they're probably better. I've lived in countries all over the world, and a lot of times the improvised solutions to things are much better than the store-bought solutions. The store-bought solutions are just the convenient solutions in a lot of cases, and in other cases, the store-bought solutions are better. It just depends. But when it comes to mask, you don't need here. Let me get into a right position here. You don't need to have some store-bought mask. You can make your own. There's plenty of videos on YouTube. Use your own judgment on who do you think is credible on YouTube, or we can search through and do it ourselves, and we can crowdsource that ourselves and find one or two videos that we think look credible, and then we can publish those. I put up one today from South China Morning Post. Now, when it comes to the United States, like Mariana, my friend that we're working on a film together in Hong Kong, and about the freedom fighters actually, and Mariana, she's so busy. She's in such demand because she's a really gifted filmmaker. And actually, I'm going to have her on as a guest. She's already agreed to it. She's awesome. But Mariana is so busy traveling around, getting ready for cons and all that. She asked me last night, is cons going to go this year? And I was like, I don't think so. That's in April, right? I would say April or May. I think April. Anyway, if it's in April or May, I would suggest be ready to read a lot of books. What's wrong with that? Be ready to do things that are creative from your home or your apartment or wherever you live. Go for walks in the forest, but don't be on airplanes. This is just getting started. We are at the very front end of this pandemic. We're at the main storm is still way offshore, and we're just getting a few raindrops right now, and it's about to hit us hard. You see Seattle closing down. You see Italy, Iran, South Korea, and now Japan and South Korea have got, flights canceled between each other, and it's just going to increase. We should have all done this before. We all should have shut flights down earlier. I know what I'm saying when it comes to the economy. It would be very damaging, but the difference is now it's still happening. The virus is going to vote. The virus is going to close the flights down itself. If the governments and the businesses and the flight crews and the customers don't shut the flights down themselves, The virus is going to do it for us. The virus is going to get to the point, like right now, like Stanford University just closing, right? Because somebody on the medical faculty tested positive, and apparently a couple of students. It's going to happen all across the country. It's going to happen at MIT and Caltech. It's going to happen at Harvard and Yale and University of Florida. It's going to happen at Florida State. It's going to happen at everywhere. It's going to happen in Orlando and up in Massachusetts. It's going to happen everywhere. It's going to happen all over Germany. Germany's getting hit hard right now. Germany, Iran, Italy, South Korea, of course, China. These are all getting hit very hard. The United States is obviously getting hit harder than we can even see yet because our testing is so terrible at this point. So let's see. Let's try to answer. So Michelle Witzel saying canceled their stop, and Amtrak canceled their stop in DC, New York City, in the Ancilla route. I've been on that train. Okay, let's see what Dizzy Van Patten is saying. Michael, I'm reposting this because I don't know. It was first lost. I just clicked your question, but I don't see it popping up for people to see. Good Lord. Okay. I don't know. Let's see if I can. I'll read your question out loud, Dizzy Van Patten. Michael, I'm reposting this because I don't know if first was lost. In one of my healthcare groups, I saw a heartfelt and frantic post from a healthcare worker. She said her long-term facility told staff that due to PPE shortage, they would be issued one set of disposable PPE to be used all day on multiple patients. Scary stuff there. Ginger Robinson, the very gifted photographer, I just asked her actually if she would send me one of her bird photos. I'm going to get it published. I don't want war photos all over my walls. She also does medical missions every year. Her and her husband, who is a surgeon, cosmetic surgeon, and he does I think reconstruct. Let Ginger explain. And her daughter's a nurse. Ginger's a nurse. These are healthcare professionals. Ginger told me the other night she's like in Vietnam because they go to Vietnam to help every year, and she said in Vietnam they'll help kids with like cleft palate, because in some countries, including the United States, when a kid has some sort of defect like that, like a cleft palate, but especially in a place like Vietnam, they will be cast out of society. That's like a very bad sentence in life to have a some sort of small defect, which is really nothing, and it can be corrected quickly with surgery. So we've got these volunteer surgeons and nurses out of their own pocket go off all over the world. I see them with my own eyes all the time. They're unbelievable. And so they go to Vietnam. Ginger told me that they reuse their masks and they reuse their gloves. They'll take their gloves and dry them out in the sun. Ultraviolet smashes bacteria and viruses. And it doesn't take long. It takes just a short amount of time. And why is this? See if there's any. It's something from Hong Kong and Korea. Okay. We'll turn that off. All kinds of things going on there. So, yeah, I mean, you can reuse things. I would take these masks and set them out in the sun. Like when I had packages come in recently with this gear that I'm using actually, and I set it in the sun before I brought it inside. So, and it doesn't take long. Believe it or not, it takes very little bit of sunlight, just a dash of it, even in ranging in seconds, can kill the viruses. That's why I have the Sterapin from, I'll talk about that on Monday or Tuesday. Anyway, I've already talked about it before, but certainly let's answer questions here. And hello, Mary McSpadden. All over Tennessee. A problem in Tennessee. I was just checking Tennessee because the tornadoes that have been a huge problem there. And of course, this is spreading in Tennessee at the same time. Remember, disasters don't wait in line. They come when they're ready. You know how Murphy's Law works. They come and just because we're getting hit with the pandemic possibly of the century or worse, it could be. It doesn't mean hurricanes are going to stop. Tornadoes are not going to stop. Earthquakes and fires are not going to stop. Other diseases are not going to stop. Surgeries that people need are not going to stop. I just got word today that one of my close family members may be very seriously ill. And this hits very close to home in that regard because she'll need very serious care if the tests turn out to be unfortunate. And so what's going to happen when these when hospitals are filled with this? I mean, it's going to be triage. We're already down to triage. We're already down to triage on masks, for instance. You may have seen the alert from Washington. Who was it from? One of the medical facilities telling that only patients should be wearing masks. They're so short of masks that they're actually rationing even for doctors and patients. Now, we need immediate input from scientists who will just go out and do research that takes like 24 and 48 hours. Go out and set some masks in the sun. And we're in a wartime situation. We don't have time for lots of 8-year studies. How is it in this sunlight and that angle of sun and this, and all these curves on how much cloud there is and meta studies of meta studies. You know what we need? We need real quick information that's mostly accurate, because this is life and death potentially for tens of millions of people if it really goes badly, and actually easily for tens of millions of people. We just don't know yet. Nobody knows. None of the experts know yet how bad the case fatality rate is going to be, or what percentage of people are actually going to get the disease. But it looks like it's going to be a lot in both accounts. And again, back to vaccines. There's still no vaccine for AIDS. When did AIDS start to show its face? In the 80s, right? Something like that. And there's still no vaccine for SARS. There's no vaccine for SARS, and there's no vaccine for AIDS, and yet we still keep people throwing out breadcrumbs of hope that we're going to have one later this year. What are the chances when we don't even have one for AIDS yet, which has killed like 39 million people? AIDS, 39 million people. Yeah, think about that for a minute. And this is potentially 10 times worse because it's happening all at once, so when we count how many people die from this, we won't be able to add in how many people died because they couldn't get heart surgery, because they couldn't do whatever. Our nurses, our doctors, our other medical professionals like EMTs, our firefighters, our law enforcement, these are now our frontline soldiers. Our Customs and Border Patrol, these are now frontline soldiers. This is a war. This is World War virus. This is really serious. So they're going to need the same sort of support that we give to our soldiers in war. And our soldiers are also, and Marines and others are also frontline on this. And this is going to be serious. I mean, one person on a submarine gets the disease, then what? We can't have them out there at sea defending the United States if they've got the disease running around the submarine, right? Or running around the aircraft carrier like the Love Boat. We can't do that. Military commanders, the commander-in-chief, President Trump, needs to really lay down the law at this point. Lock down Fort Bragg, lock down Fort Benning, lock down our naval and air force bases. Yeah, I know what I'm saying. It's life-changing events for a lot of people. But it's going to get into our military. There is absolutely no way to avoid it. The only thing that we can do is slow it down and try to keep people off of our submarines and aircraft. How are we going to keep everybody off when we got, thousands of people on a single aircraft carrier? How many aircraft carriers do we have? 10? How many submarines do we have? You know what I mean? This is a really serious deal. We've got hundreds of ships. We've got thousands of aircraft. And, when the pilots can't fly, when the hurricanes come and we need pilots to do things, or the fires come and, we need to have pilots go do things, they're not going to be able to roll out there. And so we need to get really ahead of this. And the president and others need to get right on it right now and say, look, it's now or later. Let's do it now, because later we're doing it on the virus's terms. Right now, at least we can share terms with the virus. The virus gets a vote. The enemy always gets a vote. And right now, the virus we've been taking one vote for every 9. They're this virus is way inside of our OODA loop. You know what the OODA loop is? It's the observe, orient, decide, and act loop. It's a military term. It's also used in business these days. But that's a term of basically who can it came up from a fighter pilot named Boyd. He was awesome. Anyway, he's a good military thinker. He's unfortunately passed away now. Rest in peace. But he designed the idea of the OODA loop. But the OODA loop is basically the person who can act fastest. That's why I'm telling many of the Hong Kong freedom fighters about the OODA loop. Study things like OODA loop. Have a faster OODA loop than your enemy, right? Well, this virus has a faster OODA loop. It makes decisions faster. It mutates faster. It spreads faster than we are. Our bureaucracy and our politicians are too reluctant to do what needs to be done. Companies like Boeing, listen, I've had numerous messages from huge companies whose names you definitely know. And a lot of people on this probably read them. I can't say their names because I don't want to get sued or whatever. But let's just say huge companies whose names you absolutely know already are, they're going to be shut down soon. Let's put it that way. And so, look at Stanford, and it's just going to spread across. We need to close schools. When I just said this recently, we need to stop all flights, internal and external. The president needs to come out and say, here's the deal. Get to where you want to go. And we're stopping all flights in the United States, and we're going to stop Amtrak's for passengers, and we're going to stop Greyhound buses and all this stuff. We're going to stop all of it. We're going to really implement China-like draconian measures. It's either now on some of our terms or very soon on the virus's terms. And it's coming. It's just a matter of, we're not stopping the hurricane. President Trump is not in charge of this virus. Nobody is. In fact, President Trump needs to, I would like to vote for him in November. He needs to stop shaking hands out with, I don't know if Biden can beat him because Biden's got some sort of degenerative mental issues going on. The one thing, as I've been saying since, I don't know, maybe January, January, because I said it in an interview with Jordan Harbinger. It's on his podcast. It's a great podcast. The one thing that can beat President Trump is this virus, and it can beat him directly or indirectly. It can beat him indirectly if a huge number of Americans are dead and our economy collapses. Well, our economy is going to get smashed no matter what. We just don't know how much. It can also hit him directly. Out here shaking hands. President Trump is of that age. Or Mike Pence, I like Mike Pence. If this gets Mike Pence or President Trump, all the king's horses and all the king's men might not be able to save their life, much less take them out of action. If you want to see something cause real panic, that would be a lot of our senators and representatives and governors and Surgeon General and everybody else all laid up from this thing, even if they survive, or President Trump. He could be taken out of action from this. And so literally, like permanently, like dead. This is real serious. Or just out of action long enough to heal. So, we need to take this seriously. Stop doing these pep rallies for all the Democrat and the Republican Party, stumping for the presidency, that we're going to have a vote later this year. But, this virus is getting a vote. It's voting in our election. Let's answer some questions here. Thank you, Jimmy. And I don't know who this guy is, but he's freaking smart, and he knows exactly what he's talking about. I appreciate it. Shang, let's see what Ewan says. Ewan, I really wish you were like a co-host, man. Everything you always put up is always accurate. Shanghai doctors used intravenous vitamin C. Eating it won't help much. Man, I just bought a bunch of vitamin C. I want to see studies on that. And I don't want to be shooting myself up with drugs. One thing that's important is to make sure that we get sleep. Like today, I've reduced the amount of coffee I'm drinking. I still love. Actually, I'm drinking my coffee that it's over there. It's hard to get to. But anyway, I'll show it to you some other time. It's Brian Kofage's coffee. He's helping to build the wall down on the southern border, and so. But I've reduced the amount of coffee I'm drinking to make sure I get better sleep, because sleep is a frontline. I'm sorry, sometimes I forget to look in the camera. Sleep is a medicine for many things. But it's in particular for our immune systems. We need to have lots of good sleep. So only, ration when you drink coffee, tea, or anything that keeps you awake. If you're drinking alcohol and stuff, you need to slow it down, or anything that impedes on your sleep. Anything, because sleep is a frontline defense mechanism. Get you some sunlight. Go out there and go for walks. I've told people about going for walks in combat. When I would, how people that have looked at my work for years know how much combat I've seen. It is a lot. It's a lot. It's more than even 99% of our soldiers have seen. It is a lot. And then that 1% who have seen more, a lot of them come on my Facebook, actually. You'll see them actually making comments. And they're out on some of these missions that I was on. And some of these guys did 10, 15 combat tours. They're unbelievable. But they'll tell you the same. When I would do all that, why don't I have PTSD as an example? Because I would go out and walk. I would take breaks from Afghanistan or Iraq or other combat in different places. And I would just go walk in the Himalaya mountains, right? I'd get sunlight, walk all day long, walk. Man, you eat some, man, you got to go to sleep because you're tired. You know what I mean? And so get some sunlight, talk with people. And likewise with this disease, don't get stressed out. Go for walks in the sunlight. Vitamin D will help. Also, exercise help you sleep better. And you need the vitamin D for our immune systems. And it just makes you feel better, man. You got to get your eyes out in the light. I don't know what it is. But when I would go walking between my combat times, I would feel so much better. I'd be ready to go back to war, And why aren't I? People that have seen so much of my videos and combat, and they see it's like really tight stuff. It's not long angle lens. It's wide surround sound right here. You know what I mean? Like right here, people getting shot beside me. But if you get out in the sun and you go walk a lot and you eat well and you sleep well, man, your mind just works so much better. And it's good for our immune system, which we're going to need. Don't get next to your grandparents and whatnot once you've been traveling around with this disease, because they're of that age group that, obviously we can hurt our grandparents. Yeah, Daniel says, I would just go, great. Can you see the comments when I click your comment? Is it even popping up? Because I don't see it. Like I just clicked your comment, Daniel Miller. Great idea, trekking in the Himalaya over PTSD. Yeah, and I don't have, my battery looks like it's going to go dead in my computer. Unbelievable. It's plugged in even, and it's still looking like it. We probably got 20 minutes still, even though it's plugged in. Strange. So Alan is saying alcohol is good prep. You can use it as money. Let's see. And SB saying, I don't know if you guys can see these comments that I'm clicking on. Like I just clicked on SB's comment. Something is just not going right here with these settings. So I will continue to try to, oh, good Lord, I shouldn't have hit any buttons because I wanted to answer as many questions as possible, and I've just lost those questions again. What in the world is going on here? Hope it doesn't need to be reset again. Something's not right here. Here we go. All right. We can get those to come up at least. Show current application. Show. All right. At least we can. Oh, Lord. I'm sorry. There's something not right. And all the other comments are hidden, Gary said. So I have to read them out loud. Something's not going right here because in my previous live streams, it's worked very well, and I haven't done anything different to my knowledge. So I'll just read them out loud. Error loading help. Let's see. My son was jonesing for the Black Rifle coffee. Yeah, and behind the overlay, Court is saying. Let's see. Let's see. Titles, dashboard, multi-streaming. Let's see here. Maybe here, add channel. And the battery's running dead. Lovely. Okay. Oh. It's just something strange here. Sorry about that. I'll just I'll just read questions and try to figure this out when I'm offline. And we've only got 14% battery left for some reason as well. And despite that my computer is clearly charged in and says that it's charging. Oh, good Lord. I need a new laptop. Apple, by the way, is terrible. I've had so many problems, but I don't want to leave the ecosystem when we're in the middle of all these problems. All right. Nicola Higgins is saying, I think the world needs to rethink the self-isolation ideas. It will delay the demand for hospitals to hopefully more manageable intake. Exactly. I mean, that's what we need to do is self-quarantine, self-isolate. Okay, Heidi is saying children who are not regularly vaccinated have a higher mortality rate from flu than their vaccinated peers. That's why we vaccinate, and children who are not vaccinated should not be eligible for public schools. You know, I'm starting to get second thoughts on that, actually. And I've been like telling anti-vaxxers for years that I think they're making a mistake. And why am I starting to get second thoughts? Keep in mind, last year I got a lot of vaccinations last year for my next trip to India. And if you've ever been to India, you'll understand why. But because India is the most biologically dangerous country I've ever been to. But in any case, so I get my vaccinations. But we know that many vaccinations are made in China. We know that China has repeatedly hurt a lot of people with vaccinations. We know that CDC, we know that the World Health Organization, we know that the Surgeon General all are regularly lying. We've seen the CDC stand right up there with the president in the last 10 days or so and spew a bunch of nonsense that's completely untrue. They're putting out confusing information. They're trying to tell lies by telling a bunch of truthful sentences. So if you dissect every sentence that they say, it'll be true. But when you put all that quilt of sentences together, they make a big lie. For instance, they'll say, well, the masks don't actually stop the viruses coming in because the virus is actually smaller than, the whatever microns, 2 or 3 microns or whatever. But the thing is a lot of what does this is the spittle, right? And also there's more to it. Or they'll say the mask, people don't know how to fit them correctly. Listen, anybody can ride a bicycle or operate a computer. This computer is like 1,000 times more complex. Mine is. I can't get it to work right. But I mean, there's something wrong with the software, I think, because I'm not doing anything different. But it's easy to fit your mask. It doesn't take 3 days of training. You can go on YouTube and you can see it takes, all of a minute to 3 minutes of training, and you can use these masks correctly. It's super simple. How to take them off, how to put them on, that sort of thing. I just keep this one as a prop, actually. But so they'll tell us truthful sentences. So if they want to get lawyerly about it, sentence by sentence, they tell the truth. But then they'll omit things. They'll lie by omission by not saying, well, coughing. Well, yeah. Well, you could have just given it to everybody else. And then there's a lot of actual lies that are out there. For instance, that if you're not showing symptoms, there's no need to wear a mask. They've been saying since the beginning that asymptomatic people are spreading the disease. People showing 0 symptoms are spreading this disease. And yet they're saying, well, if you don't show symptoms, you can't even make up stuff like this. The problem, of course, is our mask shortage. But instead of telling the truth and going, we have a mask shortage because, well, we failed to plan, and so we don't have masks. I mean, that's just the way it is. Yep, we screwed up. We can already see that you screwed up. So bypassing that part doesn't make us not see the elephant in the room, right? We can see it. You did not stockpile the masks that we need. You have utterly failed the United States, and the World Health Organization has utterly failed the world. We can see that. There's no way to unring the bell, and there's no way you're going to escape that. But what you don't have to do is keep smashing your credibility even further into the dirt. For instance, the Surgeon General coming up with his big Navy hat on in front of the White House, telling people not to wear masks. Did you see the tweet that he put up? The Surgeon General, Jerome Adams, Doogie Howser. Doogie Howser would have done much, much better, but Jerome Adams is like, what did he say in his tweet? Like something like "get real, people" or something like that. Just web search it, and you'll see his tweet. He's like putting up like a 16-year-old's tweet and telling people not to wear masks because he's saying not to buy masks. It's just absolutely ridiculous. Instead of just saying, "Hey, we got a mask shortage. We need the mask in our medical facilities." Instead of saying that, we have that ABC woman, Dr. Jen, whatever her name is, who's a surgeon. She's out there trying to shame people who are wearing masks. She's like, "You're a bad person." This is not exactly what she said, but I'm paraphrasing. This is what she said in paraphrase. She's like, "You're a bad person if you're wearing masks. You're a bad, bad person." And they don't work anyway. She's basically saying like this: "You're very stupid if you're wearing masks. And also, you're a bad person." That's exactly what she's saying in paraphrase. Look at what she said. I put the link up yesterday. She's got no credibility. She will not recover that credibility. ABC is, every time I see her on there, I'm going to be like, she could not have done worse by smearing feces on her face before going into surgery. That's basically what, every time I see her face now, I will imagine her face smeared with feces. That's how much bullshit she put out there. And it's going to hurt people. It's going to kill people. Listen, when they say that masks don't work, it stops people from taking improvisation into account. Like, hey, I can't buy a mask, but I could improvise one. But, Jerome Adams, that Navy guy in front of the White House with all those ribbons and stuff that mean jack shit, he's out there saying that we shouldn't wear masks. And he's the Surgeon General, and he's in front of the White House, and he's in the Navy, and he's got that big hat on. And Fox News introduced him as their favorite guy or something like that, something like that. You can see it. And so people are going to go, well, why should I even improvise a mask? Because Surgeon General said it doesn't work. And then when people say, but he's lying, they'll go, well, but he said it, and we get into that circle. And so this disease then spreads faster because they chose to lie to us after they failed since 1918 to stockpile enough masks in the richest country in the world. Meanwhile, the World Health Organization churning through billions of dollars and huge amounts of first-class flights and business-class flights, staying in 5-star hotels, and we don't have enough masks. And what do they bring to the table? World Health Organization tries to rename this and not call it a pandemic because it'll hurt their buddies in the Chinese Communist Party. Yep, that's it. There's only 6% battery left in this thing for some reason, and so it's going to go offline no matter what. And so soon, and I'll try to answer a couple more questions. Yeah, hello, Iris Law. That's she said. The doctor, surgeon, Jen something, ABC medical correspondent, just completely lied. And some of the lies are through omission. Some of the lies that we see, sentence by sentence, may be actually truthful. But then when you look at it, and if you know what's going on and you're paying attention, a lot of people aren't paying attention, and it's not really their fault. They got like 3 kids to take care of and a job, and somebody's sick, and they got a house payment, and they got all kinds of stuff going on. They don't have time for paying detailed attention like I do 7 days a week. They don't have time for that. So they got to come on and take it in sound bites. And sound bite is, Surgeon General said, I don't need masks. Okay, I don't need masks. I gotta take care of the kids. I gotta get the kids to school. Kids sick, got measles, whatever. I hope they don't have measles. But you know what I mean? But so they're taking in sound bites, and these people are giving them false information. They're giving them false sense of security. Everybody watching this is going to get hit with the virus. It doesn't mean everybody's going to get infected, but we are all going to be exposed to it one way or another. All of us know people that are going to get sick, even if, and there's a high chance that there's a very high chance that people that are watching this, like me, I probably have a much higher chance than 50% that I will be infected, as do you. And how well our bodies react to it will depend on general health, which strain we get, L or S or some other strain, how much sleep we're getting, how much vitamin D we're getting, how much stress is in our life. And the CDC and others are only adding to stress by saying all this nonsense and lying about it. And so that people like us have to come on and get our information from somebody besides the government whom we cannot trust. It's terrible. Caroline Spence Thomas is saying, put up links when you say things like this, please. And all right. Now, this battery is going to stop on my laptop. I have no idea what is going on with this computer, but it seems to be a software issue because it's churning through my battery and it's not letting your comments show. So I'm going to try to restart things, and I'll leave it off for a while and let battery recharge. If you want me to come back on, leave it in the comments. I'll say again, if you want me to come back on, leave it in the comments, and then I will continue to study more, and then I'll come back on later, 30 minutes or an hour or so. I'll come back on if you want me to come back on and try to answer some of these questions and try to get your questions to show online. I want to say again in closing, everything I do is through reader support and has been since 2005. Since 2005, the way I operate is by people hitting my PayPal button and now Patreon. Patreon's actually often the best. I really appreciate any support through Venmo, Zelle, Mitsubishi Bank, or Bank of America. All these things are posted on my Facebook and on my main website. I will come back on later. This battery is almost dead. If you want me to come back on, leave the comments, and I'm going to go ahead and punch off for now if I can figure out how to close this thing. Mike out. End broadcast.